The opulent halls of the desert palace were silent, save for the faint ticking of an ornate golden clock, a sound that seemed to count down the final moments of a crumbling empire. The billionaire sheikh leaned against a marble column, his dark eyes flickering with a calm that belied the storm brewing beyond these walls. His kingdom, worth $300 million, was on the brink of disaster, and only one woman held the fragile thread that could either save it or break it forever. Outside, the scorching desert sun painted the endless dunes with fiery hues, its heat intensifying the weight of tradition and power that draped over the palace like an ancient tapestry. Velvet curtains swayed gently from the open windows, carrying whispers of loyalty and unspoken fears. The scent of oud mingled with the crisp air, wrapping the room in the intoxicating perfume of heritage and opulence. In the quiet center of this grandeur, the nanny sat by an intricate mosaic fountain, her hands trembling ever so slightly as she clutched a crumpled letter, the harbinger of ruin. Years of unwavering devotion had etched lines of worry across her face, eyes once bright with certainty, now clouded with doubt. Each breath she took was heavy, a silent battle between hope and despair. The empire's future hung precariously, tangled in debts and betrayals that none dared voice aloud, except her. The billionaire sheikh's voice sliced through the thick tension, low and steady. "Tell me everything again," he commanded. Yet there was no harshness, only the weight of concern that few had ever heard in his impeccable tone. She met his gaze, vulnerability cracking her composed facade. "The partners are ready to pull out. If we lose this contract, everything falls apart. 300 million, the foundation of all we've built." Her words trembled like fragile glass about to shatter. He stepped closer, the desert sun catching the glitter of diamonds woven into his traditional attire. "You carried this burden alone for too long." His lips curved into a shadow of a smile, enigmatic, unsettling. "But the problem is not as unsolvable as it seems." A flicker of disbelief sparked in her eyes. "With all due respect, Your Highness, we've tried every angle. Every trusted advisor is at a loss." His gaze sharpened, piercing through the room like a falcon spotting prey. "Yet, you overlooked one detail." His fingers brushed the letter gently, eyes scanning beneath the composed script, as if reading hidden lines between words. The room held its breath, as the fingers of dawning understanding stretched, unfolding a path unseen. Within moments, a silence so thick it pressed against the skin, he uttered a plan so audacious it stunned everyone present. "The solution lies not in more capital, but in a subtle shift of trust, rearranging alliances that no one dared consider." His voice was a thread, pulling the frayed edges of hope together, narrow but unbreakable. The nanny's lips parted, eyes wide in incredulous awe. The cold facade of the billionaire sheikh had melted, revealing a man who wielded his intellect like a blade and valued loyalty beyond gold. As murmurs of relief swirled around the grand chambers, a new bond crystallized between master and guardian. Weighted with unspoken gratitude and the promise of something deeper, perhaps even redemption. If you felt the pulse of this story, don't forget to subscribe and like. Tell us in the comments, what secret do you think the billionaire sheikh uncovered to save his empire? Your guesses may unfold the mystery yet to come. The desert palace breathed a tense silence, as if the walls themselves awaited the outcome of a desperate gamble. The billionaire sheikh stood near the towering window, the golden light of the setting sun casting long shadows that danced across his face. His mind raced, every beat echoing the fragile fate of his empire. The plan he had just whispered hung heavily in the air, too bold for some, yet the only beacon left in a sea of crumbling alliances. The nanny's eyes, still wide with disbelief, remained fixed on him. She sensed the storm that was about to breach the fortress of tradition and wealth. Her hands fidgeted, pressing the crumpled letter to her chest, as if holding on to a lifeline. "I'll need every detail about these new alliances," the sheikh said quietly, voice cooled by the desert breeze slipping through the ornate lattice. "We must tread carefully. One wrong move and the house of cards collapses." She nodded, swallowing thickly. "There's a faction among the old partners. Whispered doubts about your leadership. They're torn between loyalty and self-preservation." His jaw tightened, muscles flexing beneath his finely embroidered robe. Loyalty built on fear is fragile. If they doubt me, then there's only one way to reclaim their faith, by showing them what losing truly means. Stepping away from the window, the sheikh paced through the grand hall, his footsteps echoing like a drumbeat of resolve. The scent of oud deepened, mingling with the warm notes of amber, wrapping the space in a heady perfume of power and seduction. Suddenly, the heavy double doors creaked open, and the palace's young physician entered hesitantly. His glance was furtive, burdened with urgency. The nanny's lips parted slightly, the tension thickening. Even in the glittering expanse of gold and marble, fragility found its place. "Your Highness," the physician began, voice low and respectful, yet unwavering. "There are troubling reports from the southern province. Insurgents have been stirring unrest, threatening vital trade routes. If they succeed, the contracts you rely on may dissolve before any pact can be sealed." The sheikh's dark eyes narrowed, shadows deepening beneath their lids. "This complicates the plan. Our coalition must show strength, not weakness." A brief silence fell, heavy as desert heat. Then he spoke again, voice colder now, sharper. "Send envoys to secure the tribes. Offer them what no one else dares, honor and investment. They must be made to see that alignment with us is their only path to survival." The nanny watched him, a mix of admiration and apprehension fluttering in her chest. Beneath the pyramid of power, she glimpsed the man, a tempest of pride, desperation, and a flicker of hope struggling to pierce the dark clouds. Later that evening, in the intimate alcove, draped with silk curtains and illuminated by flickering lanterns, the billionaire sheikh awaited the arrival of the one person who could tip the scales. The woman whose presence was as volatile as the desert winds themselves. She entered silently, her gaze steady despite the storm brewing between them. "You summoned me," she said, voice steady, but laced with a quiet fire. The aroma of jasmine seemed to follow her movements, intoxicating and impossible to ignore. He did not answer immediately. Instead, he observed her, the way her pulse quickened beneath the shimmering fabric, the subtle tremble she fought to conceal. His chest tightened at the thought of the secrets she carried, the fragile threads binding them tighter than either wished to admit. "The Empire trembles," he finally said, voice low but urgent. "And you, like it or not, hold a piece of its fate." Her eyes flickered with defiance. "I am not a pawn to be played in your game." He stepped closer, the heat between them thickening, the space shrinking, until only the weight of unspoken truths remained. "Neither am I, but we are bound, by necessity and by choices long past." She recoiled slightly, yet her voice softened. "There are things you do not know, things that, if revealed, could shatter all we've built." His gaze locked onto hers, unflinching. "Then tell me, let no secret remain buried, or it will be the ruin of us all." A tremor passed through her, lips parting as if to confess, but silence held her captive. Outside, the desert night took over, stars blazing. Like distant promises, cold and unyielding, the palace, once a symbol of invulnerability, now stood vulnerable, caught in a web of shifting alliances and hidden betrayals. Deep in the shadows of the inner garden, a figure watched from behind olive trees, eyes gleaming with calculated intent. The whispered strategies within the palace walls were not as secret as they believed. A faint smile curved the Sheikh's lips as he broke the silence. "If we survive this storm, it will not be by strength alone, but by understanding the shadows that move within our own house." The woman's breath hitched, a silent prayer hanging between them. And then, just as the moon cast a silver glow on the fountain's rippling water, a message arrived, a single, unmarked envelope bearing a seal even the Sheikh recognized. He broke the wax seal with deliberate calm, unfolding the letter with a slow, measured hand. His eyes scanned the words, darkening with every line. In that instant, the fortress of resolve faltered. The nanny, watching from a distance, caught the flicker of something unreadable in his gaze. A whisper of betrayal, far closer than any desert enemy could reach. The billionaire sheikh folded the letter carefully, pressing it against his chest. The empire was no longer just threatened by enemies outside, but by secrets sown deep within. And in that cold, quiet moment, a promise unspoken settled between him and the shadows. Something in his world was about to change forever. A change that would shatter every certainty and reveal a betrayal so profound it could bring the entire kingdom to its knees. The billionaire sheikh's fingers trembled imperceptibly as he folded the incriminating letter. The wax seal, broken and discarded, lay heavy on the marble table, a silent testament to the betrayal lurking within his closest circle. His eyes, usually so unreadable, flickered with a tempest of anger and wounded pride. The empire, his legacy, was teetering on the edge, not just because of enemies beyond the desert dunes, but because deceit had rooted itself deep inside his palace walls. The nanny, standing just behind, dared not breathe too loudly. Her heart pounded with a tangled mixture of dread and reluctant hope. In her gaze, The weight of years guarding secrets and whispers was visible. But so too was the iron resolve that had brought her through every storm. "What do you intend to do, Your Highness?" she asked quietly, her voice a fragile thread of trust. He turned slowly, the light from the lantern throwing shadows that sharpened his chiseled features. "First," he said softly, "I must uncover the source. Trust misplaced is the deadliest poison." His voice held the cold certainty of a man who commanded not only armies, but the very fate of those who dared cross his path. A sudden breeze stirred the silken drapes, carrying the scent of night-blooming jasmine. Outside, the desert was a sea of stars, silent witnesses to the unraveling of power and promises. The Sheikh's gaze lifted, as if searching the vast sky for answers that earthbound eyes could never find. The palace felt heavier now, its glistening walls, its endless gold and jewels, all suddenly fragile beneath the crushing weight of suspicion. Footsteps broke the heavy silence. The hero she had been secretly waiting for entered with cautious steps. She was the strategist, the enigma who always dared to meet his dark eyes without flinching. Her presence filled the room like a flame, deliberate, consuming, impossible to ignore. As she crossed the marble floor, the thin fabric of her dress whispered, and a subtle tremor passed through her. She didn't speak as she approached. The weight of what had just been revealed was too immense to be met with words alone. The Billionaire Sheikh's voice was low, yet it shattered the stillness. "They have betrayed us," he said, the words slicing through the thick air. "Not outsiders, not the desert clans, but those I trusted most." Her eyes narrowed, locked on his with fierce intensity. "Then we burn their bridges before they can cross back," she whispered, her voice fierce, yet trembling with the burden of their shared fate. He stepped closer, their bodies almost touching, a silent battle of wills sparking between them. The tension was electric, a dangerous dance of power and pain. "You underestimate the cost," he warned. "Enemies at the gates are easier to face than demons within." Her gaze softened, betraying a vulnerability she tried hard to conceal. "And what if I am both your enemy and your salvation?" she breathed. For a heartbeat, the world outside ceased to exist. The air was thick with unspoken questions and the fragile hope that forgiveness might still find a place in. The desert sands. The Sheikh's hand reached out hesitantly, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. A gesture so intimate it stunned them both. Yet within the touch was a promise that beneath the armor of power, a man capable of tenderness still lingered. But duty called with cruel insistence. The letter remained folded in his other hand, a stark reminder that time was a luxury long spent. "They will strike at dawn," he said grimly. "There is no room for mercy." Her lips pressed into a firm line. "Then we prepare for war and for whatever truth you fear to face." The lanterns flickered, shadows lengthening as the palace held its breath in anticipation of the coming storm. Outside, unseen eyes watched from the labyrinth of olive trees. A smirk touched the lips of the silent observer, a dangerous player who had waited patiently, knowing the empire's foundation was cracking. Inside, the Sheikh turned once more to the crumpled letter. His dark eyes scanned the final lines again, heart sinking with the realization that destruction would not come only from battlefields, but from the secrets he thought buried forever. He knew the truth of one cruel certainty. To save his kingdom, he might have to destroy the very people he once called family. The woman moved closer, her voice barely a whisper but sharper than any blade. "You cannot fight shadows alone. Let me be your sword." His gaze dropped to hers, searching, wanting to believe. The weight of the empire pressed down, but beneath it, a fragile ember of trust kindled between them, a fragile bond forged not by choice, but necessity. Then, as the first harsh winds of dawn began to stir, a servant appeared in the doorway, clutching a second letter, the script unfamiliar, the seal foreign. The sheikh broke the new wax, with fingers suddenly steady, eyes wide with disbelief, as he read the chilling words. His empire was no longer merely fractured by internal betrayal. A darker, more personal threat had revealed itself in that single message. And in the flickering candlelight, as the palace shivered with incoming storm, the billionaire sheikh's calm facade cracked at last. A name, one he thought long buried, was penned at the heart of the letter. A name that could unravel not only his empire, but the fragile soul of the woman. Standing silently beside him, the desert's silence was shattered forever. The candlelight flickered against the gilded walls as the billionaire sheikh stood motionless, the weight of the two letters heavy in his hands. Shadows cast by the velvet curtains seemed to mimic the turmoil inside him. Dark, ever-shifting, impossible to escape. The quiet whisper of jasmine from the night air seeped through the windows, but even that delicate scent could not soften the storm brewing beneath his composed exterior. The woman beside him, fierce, fearless, yet fragile, watched him with guarded eyes. Her breath was shallow, the tension between them a taut wire, stretched over the chasm of secrets and betrayal. Neither spoke. Words felt brittle, too dangerous in the fragile space they occupied. Slowly, the sheikh lowered the wax-sealed letter onto the carved ebony table, fingers lingering on the faint emblem stamped in crimson. That emblem, the signature of a name, thought lost, erased from memory, threw his world into question. His empire, already teetering on the edge of ruin, now seemed eclipsed by a personal betrayal, far more devastating than any political intrigue. His gaze met hers, dark and searching. "This changes everything," he said, voice low, but edged with a fire that burned beneath the calm. "The enemy I feared outside these walls now walks beside us, hidden beneath the mask of loyalty." Her eyes flashed with raw determination. "Then we must unmask them before they strike again. No mercy for those who poison from within." He stepped closer, the heat radiating from his body, a stark contrast to the cool desert night leaking through the palace. But secrets this deep, they fracture trust, even between us. A flicker of vulnerability cracked her hardened resolve, but she held it back, standing tall despite the uncertainty. "We will mend what's broken, together." For a moment, the world shrank until it was only the two of them in the vast marble hall. king and guardian, bound not merely by duty, but by a fragile, simmering hope amid ruin. Then, like a gust of wind tearing through silk, a sudden commotion echoed from the outer chambers. Voices rose, urgent, alarmed. The nanny's hand tightened around the crumpled letter she still clutched, her knuckles white beneath the golden light. The sheikh's expression sharpened. They know. As if summoned by his words, footsteps thundered closer. And a trusted lieutenant burst into the room, his face pale but defiant. "Your Highness, insurgents have mobilized sooner than expected. The southern tribes are rising in unrest, not just whispers anymore. They march toward the trade routes with weapons and fury," the man declared, voice strained but unwavering. The sheikh's eyes darkened, a tempest contained behind a fortress of composure. "Then the time for subtlety has passed. We either crush this rebellion before it unfolds, or watch everything burn." He turned abruptly, his cloak trailing behind him like a shadow of impending war. The woman followed, her gaze fierce but conflicted, as she stepped into the storm with him. The palace shifted around them, glittering chandeliers casting fractured light against the mosaic floors, as whispers of courtiers faded into wary silence. Intrigue and fear clung to every corner, but neither dared challenge the will of the man who had ruled by iron and silk. Outside the window, the desert's endless dunes seemed to gather, the wind stirring restless ciphers in the sand. The empire's fate was now a dance on a blade's edge. One misstep could mean everything lost. Later, beneath the brocade canopy of the private chambers, the sheikh and the woman faced each other amid flickering lanterns and the faint scent of saffron. "Tell me everything you know," he demanded, voice sharp but edged with exhaustion. "Who could betray us with such cruelty?" Her fingers trembled slightly as she unfolded a worn map, tracing the lines that marked the fractured alliances. "There is a name I did not want to believe. Your own blood. Someone raised outside this palace, hidden from you." A silence hung so thick it pressed against their skin. He closed his eyes for a moment, the cruel sting of betrayal burning anew. "Family," he whispered bitterly. "The deeper the roots, the deadlier the poison." Her eyes glistened with tears not yet fallen. "We must face it, or be consumed by it." He nodded, the weight of duty settling like a cloak around his shoulders. "Prepare for war, and prepare for truths that will haunt us both." She reached out, the touch tentative but electric, a fragile thread bridging the gulf between power and vulnerability. Outside, the winds of the desert howled as if warning the stars themselves. In the distance, behind thick olive branches, eyes watched and waited, a predator savoring the collapse. Yet to come, and in the heart of the palace, the billionaire sheikh felt the unyielding grip of a new enemy, not forged on battlefields, but in the secret chambers of his own bloodline. A letter, a name, a promise of ruin, and the knowledge that what was once hidden would unravel everything he held dear. The night stretched endlessly before them, heavy with the silence of impending reckoning. Until at last, a single word escaped his lips. A vow whispered into the cold desert air. Tomorrow, the truth will burn. The harsh desert wind howled beyond the palace walls as dawn crept cautiously across the horizon, casting fragile amber light onto the marble floors of the grand hall. Within those stately chambers, heavy with secrets and loss, the billionaire Sheikh stood, rigid, the weight of the two letters burning his palm. His dark eyes, sharp and haunted, were fixed on the horizon as if seeking an impossible answer in the shifting sands. The woman beside him, unyielding and fierce, yet clothed in delicate vulnerability, watched him with a conflicted gaze. The fragile bond they'd woven between duty and desire now trembled under the pressure of the revelation. Neither dared to disturb the silent storm brewing between them. Behind the velvet curtains, the scent of jasmine mingled with oud and amber lingered, carrying the perfume of power and impending war. Breaking the silence, the Sheikh's voice fell, low and edged with bitter resolve. We walk on a precipice. The poison within these walls is more dangerous than any blade waiting outside. Her gaze flickered downward, then lifted resolutely. And what of those we once called family? The blood that runs through your veins, can we trust it any longer? He sighed, a sound heavy with years of guarded pain. Trust is a currency I no longer possess freely. Their eyes locked, hers shimmering with tears unshed, his reflecting the shadows of battles fought in silence. In that moment, the names scrawled on the letters were not merely words, but a reckoning written in ink and betrayal. Suddenly, footsteps echoed sharply from the entrance. The nanny appeared, face pale but determined, clutching a small stack of worn papers. "Your Highness," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "Our spies report movement at the southern passes. The insurgents will not wait. They march tonight." The Sheikh's jaw tightened, muscles stiffening beneath silken robes that shone with gold thread. Then we have no margin for error. The tribes must see strength, not hesitation. The woman stepped forward, her silhouette framed by the rising sun filtering through the stained glass. And what of those within? This betrayal, who among us embraces the enemy's shadow? He turned slowly, his gaze honing in like a falcon's on hers. That answer will come, but it will cost everything. The deeper the wound, the harder the healing. An unspoken chill settled around them, an elegant cage built of betrayal and fragile hopes. Later, beneath the intricate latticework of the inner courtyard, the night had surrendered to a pale morning sky. The palace's marble fountains trickled quietly, an almost mocking contrast to the turmoil raging within. The billionaire Sheikh and the woman paced side by side along the colonnade, every step sharp and measured. "We must isolate the traitors," he commanded, voice cold as the desert's dawn chill. "Family dinners, whispered alliances, it ends. I will not watch my empire bleed from within." Her eyes, burning with unshed fury and pain, met his. "And what of us? In a house cracked by lies, can we still find refuge?" His gaze softened for a fraction of a heartbeat, revealing a flicker of the man beneath the crown. "If we survive the storm, It will be because we have no choice but to trust what cannot be broken." They paused beneath the shadow of an ancient olive tree, its leaves shimmering like emeralds against the sun's first light. The woman's hand hovered near his, but she pulled away, an invisible distance forged by fear and loyalty. Suddenly, a harsh clatter shattered the fragile calm. A young guard burst through the arched doorway, eyes wide with alarm. "Your Highness, another letter has arrived, sealed with the emblem of the southern clans. It bears a warning and a demand." The Sheikh's dark eyes narrowed, fingers curling instinctively around the letter-bearing parchment. The woman stepped closer, ready to face whatever new tempest the dawn would bring. With deliberate slowness, the Sheikh broke the wax seal once more, releasing the scent of burnt sand and old paper. His features stiffened as he scanned the letter's solemn words. "The southern clans demand allegiance or war," he muttered, voice thick with steely determination. "They offer peace only if we surrender control of the trade routes." The woman's breath caught, the weight of that ultimatum settling like hot desert dust over her chest. "And if you refuse?" He met her gaze steadily, the fires of defiance smoldering beneath his poise. "Then the desert will run red, and whatever remains of my kingdom will be forged in blood." A daunting silence fell between them, broken only by the soft trickle of the fountain's water, like a heartbeat measured against time slipping away. She took a tentative step toward him, her fingers grazing his arm, a fleeting touch full of unspoken promises and terrible stakes. But the enemy within, the shadows lurking beyond the palace gates. How do we fight when our greatest threat is unseen? His hand closed over hers, fierce and protective. "By becoming shadows ourselves, by striking before the dagger is drawn." The scent of jasmine intensified, wrapping them in its warm, heady embrace as the desert sun climbed higher, illuminating the fragile dance of power and trust between them. Then, as if summoned by fate's cruel hand, the palace doors swung open again. A courier appeared, breathless and urgency etched in every line of his face. "Your Highness," he gasped, "an emissary from a distant emirate has arrived. He brings a message, one that could unravel alliances or bind new ones." His arrival was unexpected and his intentions shrouded. The Sheikh's dark gaze narrowed, the flicker of a dangerous smile touching his lips. "Every new player brings a risk or salvation. We will meet him. And we will see which." The woman's heart pounded, a heady mixture of hope and dread, as they moved together toward the unknown. Outside, the desert wind whipped fiercely, scattering sands across the golden palace steps like whispers of forgotten oaths. And beneath the ancient stars, a new game of power unfolded. A game where betrayal and love would clash, and only one truth would survive. The truth that could destroy them all. The billionaire Sheikh's voice barely rose above a vow, yet it echoed through the sprawling halls and into the desert night. The mask will fall, and when it does, no one will remain unscarred. The dawn's fragile light seeped through the ornate latticework, casting fractured patterns on the polished marble floor where the billionaire Sheikh stood motionless, his eyes dark as the desert. Night absorbed the weight of the letters in his hands, their cruel truth settling like a venomous chill deep within his chest. The empire, precious and vast, was unraveling, not from distant threats, but from the poison that festered amid those he once called family. Beside him, the woman's steady breath kissed the heavy silence. Her gaze, fierce yet shadowed by unshed tears, met his without flinching. The fragile trust that had blossomed between them trembled like a desert flower caught in a sudden windstorm, exposed and vulnerable. "Every breath we take from here on will be heavy," he whispered, his voice a brittle thread woven with pain and defiance. Betrayal has many faces, some wearing the guise of kin, others cloaked in the silk of loyalty. Her fingers brushed the edge of the map she held, a delicate parchment marked with the fractured lines of their once unified alliances. "It is a war that must be fought, both outside and within," she answered, voice steady, yet laced with the haunting echo of uncertainty. "If the hand that strikes is hidden beneath the same banner, how do we find it before it kills us all?" His jaw clenched, the muscles beneath the shimmering fabric of his robe taut as a drawn bow. "We peel back every layer, no matter how sacred it seems. Those who poison the foundation will be burned away like a disease." A faint rustle from the shadows drew their attention. The nanny stepped forward, her steps measured but urgent. Her eyes, once brimming with hope, now mirrored the storm. "Inside the palace walls, Your Highness, the southern tribe's insurgents move faster than predicted. Figures gather beneath the cliffs tonight, their intentions sharp as scimitars," she warned, voice low, trembling with restrained fear. The Sheikh's gaze darkened, a flicker of ruthless calculation igniting behind his calm veneer. "Then the night will not be a refuge," he said, his words a sword slicing through the thickening tension. "We must strike first, before their fire spreads." The woman reached out, her hand briefly catching his. The contact was electric, but their expressions hesitated in the fragile space between trust and wounded pride. "And what of the shadows inside these walls?" she asked softly. "The hidden enemy who wears our faces?" His eyes hardened with bitter resolve. "That is the battle that will consume us all. Unless we face it head-on, I will not watch my legacy be undone by those who sneak beneath the veil of brotherhood." Their breaths mingled in the scented air, heavy with oud and the rising promise of blood and fire. For a moment, the two stood alone in the vastness of the palace, a kingdom poised on the cusp of ruin, held only by their fragile alliance. The grand doors burst open suddenly. A messenger stumbled in, cloak dusted with the desert sand, urgency blazing in his every step. "Your Highness, a delegation from a rival emirate demands an audience. They bring news that may shift the balance of power or shatter it completely." The Sheikh's dark eyes narrowed. "Every new player is either a dagger at our back or a shield in our hand." Turning to the woman, his voice softened, tinged with icy determination. "Prepare yourself. This meeting could alter everything we thought we knew." She nodded, the fire in her gaze smoldering beneath layers of doubt and desire. "We have no other choice but to face whatever comes together." As they moved toward the throne room, the palace seemed to hold its breath. Corinthian columns stretched upward like silent sentinels bearing witness to the storm gathering within. The scent of jasmine thickened, wrapping the hall in a suffocating embrace. The distant call of an owl echoed, a somber herald of the night to come. Inside the chamber, the rival emissary arrived, his gaze sharp and calculating. Yet beneath his composed exterior lurked the unmistakable shadow of ambition. The billionaire sheikh met his eyes squarely, the air between them taut with the promise of confrontation and fragile alliances. Words passed, careful, heavy, laden with ancient grudges and precarious offers. But beneath the talk of peace and trade, an unspoken warning loomed. Trust was a currency more volatile than gold. Later, under the moonlight filtering through stained glass, the sheikh and the woman retreated to the quiet sanctuary of the inner gardens. The flickering lanterns cast dancing shadows over their faces, hard lines softened by moments of quiet vulnerability. "You sense it too," she whispered, eyes searching his. "This is not just a battle for land or wealth. It is a war for souls." He reached for her hand, their fingers entwining in a tether against the encroaching darkness. And in the end, only the ones willing to burn will see the dawn. The gentle murmur of the fountain nearby mingled with their hushed breaths, a fragile rhythm against the chaos tightening its grip outside their refuge. Suddenly, a soft rustling disturbed the stillness. From the shadows, a figure emerged, one thought long vanished from memory. The air shifted, thick with shock and disbelief. The sheikh's eyes widened as recognition struck like a thunderclap. This ghost from his past, this living secret, bore the weight of betrayal more profound than any forged on distant battlefields. His voice dropped to a vow edged with ice. The past has returned, and with it, the reckoning we cannot escape. The woman stepped closer, her presence a shield and a reminder of hope amid the gathering storm. Yet even as she stood beside him, the unforgiving desert night held its breath, awaiting the moment when all masks would fall, and the fragile bonds of power and love would be tested beyond endurance. In the heart of the palace, beneath the ancient stars, the billionaire sheikh understood one brutal truth. The war for his empire was no longer about kingdoms or alliances. It was about survival. And the enemy he feared most was staring him in the mirror. Tomorrow, everything would change. The fragile dawn stretched across the palace grounds like a hesitant promise. The first rays of sunlight, timid against the weighty shadows that clung to the halls. The billionaire sheikh stood by the arched window, his silhouette etched against the fiery sky. Man torn between worlds, kingdoms, and the betrayals that festered beneath the gilded surface. His dark eyes, sharp yet burdened, traced the shifting sands beyond the palace walls. Those endless dunes bore silent witness to an empire on the edge, not just of ruin, but of a profound unraveling that reached into the deepest chambers of his heart. The woman beside him lingered at a careful distance, her breath barely stirring the scent of jasmine that filled the room. Her eyes held storms disguised as calm. She was an enigma wrapped in silk and secrets, a fragile fortress standing firm against the waves crashing over their shared fate. He spoke first, voice a low rumble, crackling with restrained fire. The letters, they are not just words, they are the fracture lines beneath the surface, and the cracks run deeper than I dared imagine. Her gaze dropped to the floor, tracing invisible patterns in the marble, as if seeking answers in its cold veins. "Family," she whispered, voice brittle yet resolute. "The blood that should bind us now stains everything with poison." A bitter laughter escaped him, a sound as dry and sharp as desert thorns. "I always feared my enemies outside these walls," he confessed. "But the enemy within, it burns faster and leaves no trace but ash." The distant melody of a fountain trickling grew louder, its delicate rhythm a stark contrast to the turmoil that gripped their souls. The palace, with its opulence and endless gold, felt suddenly fragile, as if the very walls might crumble under the weight of secrets and lies. The woman stepped forward, her presence like a sudden gust of wind. "We must act," she said, eyes burning with a fire that dared to challenge fate. "The insurgents inch closer. The traitors in our midst grow bolder. We cannot wait for the next blow." He nodded slowly, the heavy burden of leadership resting upon his broad shoulders. "Tonight we strike," he vowed, "not just against those who raise swords in the desert, but against those who wield daggers in the dark." Her hand brushed the edge of his sleeve, a fleeting touch charged with unspoken fears and guarded hopes. The warmth beneath the silk was a reminder. Amidst the cold tides of betrayal, some bonds refused to break. Suddenly, the heavy doors swung open. With an ominous creak, a messenger, breath ragged and steps hurried, appeared in the doorway, clutching a fresh letter, bearing a seal unfamiliar even to the sheikh. The tension thickened as the room seemed to hold its breath. The sheikh took the parchment with a steady hand, but narrowed eyes. The scent of smoky sand rose as he broke the seal, fingers trembling only slightly. His gaze scanned the words, darkening like the looming storm outside. "The southern clans demand submission," he murmured, voice tight with bitter resolve. "Ally with us fully, or face oblivion. They offer a fragile peace, yet the price is our sovereignty." The woman's jaw clenched, her eyes reflecting the desert's harsh light. "Peace bought with chains is merely lull before the fall." He turned from the window, eyes catching hers with a dangerous glint. "Then we prepare for fire, both outside and within." A whisper rose behind them, the soft shuffle of footsteps. Both turned as the nanny emerged from the shadows, face pale, but eyes fiercely resolute. "Your Highness," she breathed, voice a fragile thread stretched taut. "Our spies confirm movement in the southern passes. The clans will strike before the moon sets. Our defenses are thin." His expression tightened. Lips a hard line carved by years of battles and unspoken losses. "Then hesitation is a luxury we cannot afford," he said coldly. "We rally our allies, sharpen our blades, and fortify our hearts." The woman's gaze locked onto his, fierce and unwavering. "And the traitor? The mask they wear cracks with every lie we expose," he replied darkly. "But finding the face beneath is the war's true battle." She stepped closer, the space between them charged with a tempest of longing and shared dread. Trust is fragile here, she murmured. Yet if we fall apart, so does everything else. He reached for her hand again, this time holding it without hesitation. We stand or fall together. The weight of his words hung between them, heavy as desert stone. Outside, the wind stirred fiercely, carrying with it whispers of war and ruin. A sudden rustle among the olive branches startled them both. From the shadows, a figure watched, eyes cold, calculating, the smile on their lips a blade hidden in silk. The palace still held its breath. The sheikh's gaze hardened, voice barely. Above a vow, but cutting sharper than any sword. Tomorrow the truth burns, and when the fire is over, no one will escape unscathed. The morning light bled slowly into the vast desert beyond the palace, casting long, golden fingers that slipped between the towering pillars and brushed the cool marble floors where the Billionaire Sheikh and the woman stood. Their silhouettes, framed by opulent silk draperies, seemed both resolute and fragile, a moment suspended between the past's heavy shadows and the uncertain promise of dawn. He held the letters tightly, as if their weight anchored him to the unbearable truth they bore. The emblem on the wax seals flickered like a ghost, reminding him not only of betrayal, but of a family he thought lost, yet now stood poised to unravel everything he had fought to build. She watched him cautiously, the delicate tension between them humming like a taut string, vibrating with unsaid fears and reluctant trust. Her breath stirred the scented air, carrying faint whispers of jasmine and oud, perfumes both intoxicating and haunting. The wolves at the gates may be visible, he murmured, voice low and thick with the dry wind of the desert. But the vipers within, they strike where it hurts most. Her gaze did not waver. We face assassins cloaked in kinship. How do you defend against the blade hidden in your blood? His jaw clenched, the pain a quiet echo beneath his calm. By seeking truth in every shadow, no matter how deep or dark, the palace around them seemed to hold its breath. The luxurious walls and gleaming gold that once symbolized strength now felt like fragile glass, ready to shatter under the weight of breaking trust. A distant fountain whispered a melancholy rhythm, a heartbeat of water amid the desert's silent roar. Suddenly, the heavy oak doors swung open, their eerie creak cutting through the charged silence. A young guard entered hastily, eyes wide and face pale as desert moonlight. He carried a sealed letter, the emblem unfamiliar yet ominous. The sheikh's dark eyes narrowed into twin slits of suspicion. His fingers, firm yet careful, broke the wax with deliberate calm, releasing a dust of dry sand and secrets trapped for too long beneath that brittle shell. The script inside was colder than the dawn light, a chilling ultimatum. The southern clans demand allegiance. His voice trailed as he read aloud the threat concealed behind the promise of peace. Or war will consume these sands. The woman's breath caught, lips pressing into a thin line as the weight settled between them like a storm cloud ready to burst. Peace given with shackles is but a silence before chaos. He turned toward her, shadows playing across his face like flames dancing on desert stone. Then we choose our fire carefully. Their hands brushed, the briefest touch, fraught with hidden meaning. Unspoken promises, fears, and fragile hopes tangled in the warmth beneath their skins. Between power and vulnerability, a fragile bond struggled to survive. Footsteps approached from the shadows. The nanny appeared, her eyes sharp beneath tired lids, carrying grave news. Insurgents, gather faster than we expected, Your Highness. Tonight, the desert will not hold them back. A crack sharpened the Sheikh's gaze. No night is sanctuary anymore, he said, voice a low steel blade. Our enemies near and far will learn that defiance comes with consequences. The woman's voice softened, yet bore the weight of her resolve. And those who poison from within, will we root them out before they strike again? The masks they wear will shatter, he whispered, but unveiling the faces beneath, that will fracture us. They shared a look heavy with the cost of the coming battle, a cost neither could fully measure, but both understood would be paid in blood, tears, and broken trust. The air thickened, warm scents of incense blending with desert chill, as the first whispers of treachery settled like dust on ancient tapestries. A sudden rustle among the olive branches outside caught their attention. A shadow moving with predatory grace. From the darkness, a figure stepped forward, obscured by twilight, yet unmistakably familiar in the way a ghost haunts a forgotten room. The Sheikh's breath hitched, his eyes locking onto that silhouette. A living memory rising from secrets better left buried. The past and present collided with brutal clarity. That name, he breathed, voice barely audible, has teeth sharper than any blade. She reached for his hand, grounding him against the surge of emotion. Her touch was a promise and a plea wrapped in vulnerability. He nodded slowly, the flame of determination blazing beneath the stoic mask. Tomorrow, all lies will burn, and when the fire fades, the truth left smoldering will change everything. The desert sun climbed higher, casting brilliant light across a palace poised on the brink of revolution. Its walls whispering of power lost and love found in the ashes. And in that fragile moment before dawn's storm, the billionaire sheikh and the woman stood united against enemies seen and unseen, knowing the kingdom they fought for might never be the same again. The first rays of dawn crept gently over the desert horizon, spilling soft golden light into the palace's grand hall, where the billionaire sheikh stood, a silhouette carved by years of burden and battle. His gaze was distant, yet steady, hardened by truths too painful to deny, but softened by the fragile hope kindled beside him. The woman stepped closer, her eyes reflecting the first light, a mirror of resilience and gentle strength. Between them, the weight of the letters had begun to lift, replaced by a shared resolve that had not been possible minutes before. "Tomorrow's fire has passed," he whispered, his voice rough but resolute. "But the ashes remind us of what must be rebuilt, stronger, wiser, together." She nodded, a faint but genuine smile touching her lips. The years of secrets, betrayals, and battles had brought them here, not just as allies, but as partners bound by more than duty. The palace, once a fortress of suspicion, now breathed with a lighter air. Courtiers moved with tentative hope, whispers of loyalty restored, weaving through the marble corridors like gentle breezes. The fractured alliances, so perilous in the storms before, were now paving the way to new unions, patiently forged in the fire of truth. Outside, the desert shimmered under the awakening sun, its endless dunes no longer a symbol of isolation, but of boundless possibility. The scent of blooming jasmine floated through open windows, weaving a tender promise into the air. The sheikh turned to the woman beside him, eyes softened by the weight lifted from their stormy journey. "We faced shadows that sought to tear us apart," he said, voice low yet filled with a warmth seldom heard. "But here we stand, unbroken, united." Her hand found his, fingers intertwining like the roots of a tree weathered by many seasons, yet still steadfast. "The path was treacherous, but our hearts never wavered," she replied, the strength in her voice a quiet triumph. Together they walked toward the balcony, overlooking the gardens, a sanctuary that had witnessed whispered confessions, stolen moments, and battles fought not with swords, but with courage and love. The flowers bloomed in vibrant colors, their petals reaching for the sky, as if celebrating the dawn of a new era. The nanny appeared quietly behind them, her eyes glistening with bittersweet relief. "The empire lives," she murmured, "because its true strength is in those who refuse to surrender to fear." The sheikh turned, nodding with a solemn gratitude, "and in those who believe in second chances." In the distance, the courtyard echoed with the laughter of children, innocent and free, a sound that had long been absent from these halls. It was a melody of hope, a testament that life, despite its trials, always finds a way to flourish. The woman rested her head gently against the sheikh's shoulder. "What will come," she said softly, "we will face as one. No secret, no enemy, no past shadow that dares return will break what we have forged." He kissed the top of her hair, sealing a silent vow. "Our empire is not just gold and power. It is trust rebuilt, love reclaimed, and a future earned." The morning sun climbed higher, its light spilling warmth across the gleaming marble and intricate mosaics, bathing the palace in a golden glow that promised peace, born not from ease, but from hard-fought redemption. From the highest tower, the call to prayers rose, gentle and steady, a cadence of faith and continuity that embraced the palace and its people. It was a sound that spoke of beginnings, of grace, and of a kingdom reborn. Together, the billionaire sheikh and the woman who had become his pillar watched the desert stretch endlessly before them, not as a land of conflict, but as a canvas for their shared destiny. The past, with its shadows and secrets, lay behind them. The future, bright, uncertain, yet filled with promise, unfolded at their feet. And in that sacred stillness, where power met love and redemption found its voice, their hearts beat as one, steady and sure, against the vastness of the desert sky. For in the end, it was not the empire alone that survived. It was the enduring strength of love and trust that would carry them forward forever.